Sometimes, I haven't had one of those times in worship in a long time when I just felt flooded with his presence and with gratitude for that. I'm still feeling a little floody. I definitely felt the with-ness of God. It's just what we've been looking at, isn't it? So I thank the Lord for that. I needed that. Oh, sometimes it's easy to do the religious thing and use the religious thing as kind of a shield against God. You know, I'll go to church, I'll stand up, I'll sit down, I'll sing. I've done my religious thing now. I can go do whatever I want the rest of the week. Or sometimes we can lose the wonder of what we get to do here every Sunday. And I confess that there have been times that I have lost the wonder. Today is not one of those days. God reminded me that He is here. His Spirit saturates this place in our hearts. And it's not just a privilege, but it's a wonderment that God would choose to be with us. As in all His perfection and in all of His glory. I mean, we sang it. That song always destroys me anyway. But wonderful, beautiful, glorious, matchless in every way. And yet, His feet got dirty with the dust of the earth, and His hands got dirty touching lepers and unclean women and humankind. Sometimes it just reawakens some stuff, you know. This is a privilege of what we get to do every single Sunday. We don't have the privilege of sitting in judgment over it. We have the privilege of letting it judge us and realign our priorities. The first song we did, we could just sit. You know, we could hold on to who we are, but God's called us higher. And that's been the theme of this. I mean, He called the woman at the well higher. Called her beyond her relationships with men, beyond her shame that was imposed on her by other people. And He's going to do the same thing for this guy. In John chapter 5, I neglected to change the sermon quotation. It's actually chapter 5, verses 1 through 9. So if you want to correct that on your notes, feel free to do that. It's actually John 5, 1 through 9. Because I don't do details very well. And what I'd like us to do is just listen as I want us to listen to the whole 9 verses here. Sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here a great number of disabled people used to lie: the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. I'm going to stop a minute. All of those people were considered ritually unclean. Every single one of them. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, He asked him, "Do you want to get well?" "Sir," the invalid replied, "I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I am trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." Then Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your mat, and walk." At once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. The day on which this took place was a Sabbath. And I'm going to stop right there. The title of that I entitled this sermon is that the with-ness of God challenges us. They have uncovered. There's two pools actually. They're called the twin pools at the Sheep Gate, and they have uncovered the colonnades. Archaeology has discovered this place, so it's a real place, and this happened in real time when Jesus was there. It is still spring-fed, this pool, and it's very deep. In other words, the word for pool here means it was deep enough to swim in. And the conjecture here is that it was an intermittent spring that used to bubble up every now and again, and the superstition around it was that if you were the first one in the pool after the bubbling, you would get healed. I know that's superstition, but it had a history of healing waters at this pool. And so everybody would come, hoping to be the first ones to get in the water after it was disturbed. And this guy had been laying there, had been an invalid for 38 years. Now, I don't know if he had been lying there the whole 38 years or if he had someone truck him in and set him down, and that for 38 years he had not managed to find someone that could help him get in the water. That's a whole sermon in itself, isn't it? Yeah. You know, how many people are waiting for someone just to speak a word to them, a kind word, a healing word, a helping word? And some people never get that. You know, you and I have the benefit of this place and us. We can call each other and say, you know, man, I need a word. Can you just help me? How many people go their whole lives and they don't have? Okay, that was free. I'll move on. Anyway, so for 38, it's a long, long time, and Jesus comes along. He goes where the forgotten are. He goes where the unclean are. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty with humankind. He doesn't judge anybody. He's there as a presence. And then he sees this guy, the OG that's been coming for a long time, you know? And he sees him lying there, and it says, and then he learned that he had been in this condition for a long time. So somebody filled him in on what this guy's situation was, right? Sometimes you don't have to be God to know that stuff. You can look at somebody and tell if it's been 38 years since someone said something to him nice, right? And so he asked him the natural question: do you want to get well? Boy, that pierces to the heart, doesn't it? I know people that don't want to get well. I know people that would rather be victims than to heal. I know people that would rather stay in their, they'd be like the first part of the song, they want to stay in their house and hold on to themselves and be safe. And that's it. I know people like that. You do too, don't you? So Jesus asked him the question that's hopefully intended to pry up a little bit of response out of him. And I think the guy was honest. He said, I don't have anyone to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. And when I'm trying to get in, someone goes down ahead of me. Well, that's okay. That's probably true. That's probably exact. I'm not hearing him feeling sorry for himself. I'm hearing him just saying, you wanted to know, I'm trying, but I'm not able to get there. And then Jesus says to him, get up. Pick up your cot. It's actually a cot. This word means cot. It has a mat over it. And walk. So he's telling the guy, the thing that has been supporting you for all of these years, now you are going to carry. We're going to turn the tables on your disability. We're going to turn the tables on your impotence, your powerlessness. And it says, at once the man was cured, and he picked up his cot and walked. And then, as a foretaste of what's to come, the day on which this took place was a Sabbath. I can't think of a better day to be healed than a Sabbath. That was not so with the people that are around him, but we'll get into that next week. So think with me about this guy. Jesus walks up. You know, later on when the chief priests and everybody grilled this guy about who told you you could carry your cot on a Sabbath. Oh no, they broke a rule. He didn't even know Jesus' name. So he doesn't know who Jesus is. He doesn't ask him his name. Jesus just walks up and engages him in this conversation. And that in itself is telling. That he would walk up to someone who is considered unclean, someone, you know, for 38 years, I'm sure there's somebody in the room there or the area there that would be going, oh, look at that guy. Boy, he's really milking it. He's not even trying to get into the pool. You know, he just wants to beg and get free stuff. That's all he wants to do, right? Brought to you by Pastor Steve. I hope you prayed over those and shook them before you gave them to her, so all the calories are out, right? And don't you know the gossip about this guy? It's a racket. He's probably faking his illness anyway, right?
Right.
Yeah, oh no, it's, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all manner of stuff must have been said about him, and he's just looking up in Jesus' face, and he's just saying, "Look, here's my deal." But you know, when you have something for 38 years, sometimes it's easier to be that something than it is to grow or heal or become something new. Sometimes we make friends with our faults. We make friends with our disabilities. We make friends with our mental state. Sometimes we are easy. It's easier for us sometimes to be suffering than to be well. But I got to give it to this guy. The minute he engaged Jesus back, and the minute Jesus gave him the opportunity to be whole again, he took it. And at once, he picked up his mat and walked. Jesus challenged him. Jesus walked right into his 38-year gig and said, do you want to be different? Do you want to be well? Do you want to be whole again? See, the With-ness of God challenges, first of all, our contentment with the status quo. Sometimes I think we default to whatever we think will bring us peace. And so we just want everything to be the same. We want everything to be predictable. We want everything to be peaceful. We want everything to be to go the way we want it to go. That hasn't happened very often in my life. How about yours? You know? And particularly with how noisy and chaotic the world feels right now. Steve's been watching this docuseries about the heavy airplane flyers in World War II. And I haven't watched it, but I've been in the room when it's playing. And just the constant stress and chaos in their lives has been noteworthy for me. The world was at war. There wasn't a quiet place, a quiet corner in the entire world. Everybody was involved. And I look at our lives now, and yes, things feel chaotic right now. And yes, there are wars happening. But the wars that are happening in the United States are different. They're psychological warfare and political warfare. But relatively speaking, I mean, we're in here, we're safe, it's calm, right? But if we got content with this, would we make a difference in our world? If we decided that this was going to be contentment at all costs, would we ever get well? So God needs to come along, and God needs to shake up our contentment. He needs to confront our idol worship of the status quo. Don't tell me anything new. I don't want to learn anything new. Don't take me through. I was just thinking about, we were talking about, blessed be your name when I'm found in the wilderness. Right? We don't like to think about wilderness. We don't want to stay there. We don't want to live there. We don't want to go there. You know, even Jesus had to be drop-kicked into the wilderness for temptation in the beginning chapters of Luke. But what Jesus does is he challenges that. It's like, really, are we so content with the status quo that we're not open to the best that God has for us? Oh, but change is scary. I don't like change. Okay, so things are going to change whether you want them to or not.
You got that
right. Right?
Yeah, that's for sure.
So let our contentment with the status quo of Lifehouse, status quo with our lives, let that get challenged by Jesus. What does God need to do to shake us out of that contentment and into a deeper trust in Him? He's called us higher. He's called us deeper. Will we go wherever He says to go? Will we? We have to get real and ask yourself that question. Will we do that? Will we become well? Will we not lean on our crutches? Right?
Right.
The second thing that it challenges is our conception of what God's will looks like. Sometimes we get it in our head. Okay, so this guy had it in his head that the only way he was going to be healed was if someone helped him into the pool when the water was bubbling.
Exactly.
That was it. So for 38 years, he had put his marker on that number and said, it's going to come up one day. I know one day I'm going to find somebody that's going to help me into that pool. I'm going to beat everybody else to the punch, and then I'm going to be okay.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
But Jesus comes along, and then with just one sentence, 2 words, He blows that whole conception out of the water. Get up.
Yeah, that's what he said.
And if I'd have been the guy, I'd have been going, what do you mean get up?
I know.
I've been here 38 years. You think I'm going to get up? Well, I guess I am, you know.
Yeah.
And not only that, the thing that has been carrying you, you're going to carry now. You're going to pick it up and you're going to walk, indicating his full healing and conquering the thing that had kept him an invalid. Right here. His concept of what God's will looked like was completely altered. Which leads us to us. You ever been praying for someone and you prayed for an answer and you prayed for that answer and you prayed for that answer and you prayed for that answer and you never got that answer, but you got a different one? That's just one indication. If we put all of our hopes and dreams in the answer, that's called idolatry.
Oh, yeah.
You can't have faith in the answer to your prayer. You have to have faith in the one who answers. Right?
Right.
Our conception of what God's will looks like, I'll tell you what, I was just telling them about the vision I had for Lifehouse 22 years ago. And Lifehouse doesn't look hard. It looks a little bit like what I saw, but it doesn't, on the main, it does not look like we have no warehouse, we have no, you know, the whole thing. God's will has looked different from what I thought it would. And I've had to be okay with that.
Oh, definitely.
And I've had to say, whatever your will is, that's what I will receive, rejoice, and give my life to. There's a lot of us that end up in places we never thought we'd end up, either spiritually or physically, health-wise or relationship-wise. Our conception of what God's will looks like gets completely changed by Jesus being with us. Which is where it's up to you and to me to take our hands off of what we think it should look like. Didn't we talk about expectations about a month or so ago and talked about how expectations will kill you? I've had to let go of about every expectation I ever had. And then I discovered that those expectations weren't even close to what God wanted for me. Now, it's hard to let go, especially if my hands are clutching onto it, right?
Oh, yeah.
It can be painful for God to pry my fingers off of what I thought it should be.
Exactly.
But thank God He has. And thank God He is still working His will through us, through me, through you. Is He just hitting home with you guys? Yeah? Okay. The third thing, not only does Jesus' with-ness challenge our contentment and our conception, but He also challenges us to carry out His commands. He tells to this guy what would be an amazingly cruel thing to say to this guy if Jesus weren't who He was. You know, for just some off the street dude to walk up and tell some invalid, you know, of 38 years, get up and pick up your mat and walk, the guy could have looked at him and said, "No poop, Sherlock. You think I don't want that?"
Yeah.
Right? But Jesus being there and embodying the power of God, just like you and I do, by the way, we embody the power of God, right? Paul says that the same power that raised Jesus up from the dead is in you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Let that sink in a minute. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead is in you. So there is no situation you walk into completely powerless. ever. So Jesus shares with him the power, stirs up the power within this guy and says, get up, pick up your mat, and walk. And in doing that, Jesus answers the very prayer he had longed for probably for 38 years. I don't know what initiated his condition. I know nothing about what happened to this guy. But the prayer of his heart had to have been, one day, I want to leave this stupid cot behind. One day, I want to get up and walk. And now it was up to the man to decide if he was going to go, oh, I don't know about that. I don't know. There's no water involved here. You're not a doctor, I don't think. Maybe I'll just lay here on the mat, safer on the mat. I've tried to get up before, and I know what happens. If I try to get up, I fall down and I hurt myself more. I just know these things, okay? Strange man that just walked up and spoke to me at the side of the pool. I mean, he could have offered 50 different excuses for staying on that mat. Yeah. Instead, he picked up his mat and walked.
Wow, that's amazing.
I want to know the details. When I get to heaven, I want to talk to this guy. Yeah. I want to see, how did it feel to have life flow back into your limbs? How did it feel to have this burden lifted off of you? What was that like for you? And that's going to be the fun thing about heaven, is sharing all this stuff. The man was cured. Did you know that the Greek word for salvation also means healed, cured? I'll have to look up what this word is.
Yeah, that's true.
But salvation doesn't just apply to eternity. The cure is for us now. The cure is for us to live into.
Right, yeah.
Eternity is here. Right?
Yeah, it is.
To get to the cure, we have to take the words of Jesus seriously. We have to stop being content with the status quo. We have to let our conception of what God's will look like be changed. And no matter what our condition, we have to carry out his commands. Not because if we don't, we'll make God mad. It's not about that. It's about that whole thing of, if we're going to be well, we have to live it. So obedience is about living the wellness that the with-ness of God brings us. The day on which this took place was the Sabbath. That's significant for what's going to come in the opposition that Jesus is going to face. But it's a commentary on the fact that the man did two things that broke Sabbath. He walked, and he picked up that mat and carried it. You were not allowed to travel beyond a certain distance from your home on the Sabbath. You were not allowed to lift anything but carry it. So what that tells me is that our Sabbath will make us break rules. And I'm going to leave you with that for next week. Because Jesus broke, we've already looked at the rules that Jesus broke already, right, with the Samaritan woman. He broke rules with this guy by even being around unclean people. And then this guy broke rules as a result of his healing. Mainly because there are some rules that are human imposed, and those deserve to be broken. But I'll just leave you with that. In the meantime, to get us ready for that, we have to have some stuff rearranged in here. We have to say to God, you are the one who's in charge of my everyday life. You get to do it the way you want to do it. And I will do what you say, no matter what anybody else thinks about it. Can we get there? Can we get past needing other people's approval? Can we get past worrying about rule breaking? Can we get past about ourselves? We were just talking in membership class about how sometimes it's so hard to see ourselves with a real lens, right? So, Father, we pray today that you would come and that you would shake up our status quo. That you would realign our concept of what your will looks like. In our lives, in Lifehouse. And Lord, we say to you, while you're doing that work in us, we are already saying yes to obeying you. Can I pray that? I can pray that for me. Can I pray that over all of us? You have to pray that for yourself. You have to. And that requires surrender. Surrender of your will, surrender of your inmost being. So we're going to sing one of those songs that's dangerous to sing. And if there's some of the lyrics to the song are a little bit more, you might want to just hum. You might just want to hum.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you sing the song as a true prayer, God will act. He will hear and he'll say, okay, here I come. Then come.
Yeah, really. Come on, Jesus.
Do it.
Yeah,
Change
come
us.
on. Jesus, you can do it.
Amen.
Really.
Sing to him if you dare.